Lighting, Learning, Emotion. Light and Light Academy hosted the webinar LIGHTment Journey with Lauren Dandridge. Explore how light becomes language, from design studios to human connection. This is Light with Purpose. Join Lauren Dandridge on a journey through design, education, and impact.
So thank you for having me. Thank you, Amy, Light and Light Academy, and Women in Lighting and Silhouette Awards. My name is Lauren Dandridge. I like to think of myself as just a lighting person. I love everything around light, but first and foremost, I am really a lighting educator, and these are the two things that keep me most busy professionally. And I love this picture because when people find out what I do, they're like, oh, every time you go into a room, do you look up at ceilings? And it's like, well, yeah, that's actually exactly what I do. And these are all of the organizations that support really what we do in our community. So, I teach at the School of Architecture. This is my company, Chromatic, and you'll hear more about those two very specifically. WILD is the Women in Lighting and Design here in the US. NOMA is the National Organization of Minority Architects that I volunteer for over the summer. The IES, which I collaborate with and have done panels and discussions for Women in Lighting. Thank you again for having me. And of course, the International Association of Lighting Designers. So aside from do you look at ceilings, the other question I get is, so how did you get into lighting? It's such like a weird thing. Do you mean like films? Do you mean like sporting events? And it's like, no, actually, if you've taken my class, you've seen this project specifically because I remember when it won the Radiance Award from the IALD, and I saw it on the cover of LDNA, and I just was like, oh my gosh, this is so beautiful. And it really talks back to this person, which is me in 6th grade. And what I will tell you and tell anyone time and time again is that light is inspirational, not just because it is beautiful and it's all of these things, but it's because it speaks directly to the human heart and the human imagination and the human soul. And when I was this little girl, I saw this play, which is called The Wiz. And this was just a random photo I found online, but the most popular version of it is this. You can see Michael Jackson on the left. The young lady in the middle is Diana Ross. And I went and saw a production of it, and there was this really cool lighting effect. And I saw it, and I was like, that is so amazing. And I went and I spoke to some of the technical people at the end of it, and they were like, oh yeah, we can show you. And so then over the course of the next few years, I was lucky enough to go to a school that had a very strong performing arts program. I ended up getting into what was called technical theater, and I didn't know that that was a thing. And eventually dance concerts came up and I volunteered, and productions came up and I volunteered. And then the first person who really changed my life came into the picture, and her name was Susan. And Sue came into my life and said, did you know that you could do this for a living? And I was like, what do you mean? I can do lighting? Like lighting as like professionally and make money and like not teaching like as you're doing here in this theater? She was like, no, you can go do it and do shows and do them on Broadway. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. I never even thought about that. So then come high school, here I am applying to college. This is my senior year photo. I have the biggest, boldest ideas of how I am going to go to college. I'm going to become a Broadway lighting designer because that is what moves me. I want to go look and tell stories with light. I want to create silhouettes. I want to blend colors on site because I want to see strong shadows cast across the stage. I want to help people tell stories, all of these things. And I get to Northwestern and I start participating in shows. And I did what's called the Dolphin Show, which is the largest student-run show in the country that's in a 1,000-seat proscenium stage. And we did this production of Evita, and this is back in 2003. And then eventually I did my thesis project, which was this play called 6 Characters in Search of an Author. And then at some point I had this panic, and I said, oh my gosh, how do I actually make a living doing this? Like it's all fun and games when I'm here in this controlled environment. There's a theater here. I know I got a gig. I got work study giving me money. How do I actually make a living doing this? Because this is what I love, having colored light and silhouettes and scallops and shadows and storytelling, and it wasn't speaking to me as strongly as my fear of being able to provide for myself. And then I got to the place like, well, I love lighting, but how do I do that without theater? And so then the next person who came and changed my life was Kathy Prisgoda, who was teaching at UCLA Extension, and I had moved to California after college, and I was taking classes, and I saw that she had a bachelor's degree in theatrical lighting, and she was teaching architectural lighting classes. And I cold called her, and I was like, hey, can I meet up with you? I have this degree. I don't really know what I'm going to do with it. I love lighting. I'm really interested in what you're doing. It sounds really stable. It sounds really amazing. Do you feel really fulfilled? Do you feel passionate about what you're doing? And then I saw some of her work, and I said, oh, I see shadows. I see play. I see storytelling even here in the architectural space. And that's so amazing. And I worked for her for a couple of years, and then eventually it was time for me to move on. But I learned so much. That was my big transition into architectural lighting, and that's where I learned everything about how it becomes permanent, not just in a shifting space where the set is going to eventually leave and where it's okay for somebody to exit stage right and it can just be dark. In a real building, you have to have light going off. You can't just exit into darkness down a hallway. And that's when I started learning about lamp technology and dimming and dimming protocols and switching and controls diagrams. And it was just my whole world just expanded. And when I just thought I couldn't learn anymore, I changed jobs one more time, and I cold called another lighting designer right as the economy was shifting. And she was a lighting designer at an electrical engineering firm, which is a total different game. And her name was Eileen Thomas. And I said, hey, I'm looking, to make a change. And, she said, come on. And when I thought I hadn't, and I thought my world had exploded when I'd gone from theater to residential and retail lighting, Eileen was working at an electrical engineering firm, and electrical engineers are on every job. Lighting designers aren't on every job. So we were then facilitating lighting and design on every single project that was passing through this 100+ person firm. And now all of a sudden I'm learning about, high intensity discharge. I'm learning about ballast. I'm learning, none of which we're talking about anymore, by the way. I'm learning about, KVA and egress, and we're doing lighting calculations, and I'm learning AGI, and, my little world had exploded, to like this little here, and now it's massive. And these three women totally shaped what was possible for me through my career with light. And without them, I don't know how my life would have happened or how lighting would have been a part of my life, because up until then I thought I was probably going to go into science or some sort of animal professional experience. And I remember calling Eileen and saying, first of all, I didn't think she was going to pick up the phone, and I was ready to leave a voicemail, and then she picked it up and I panicked. I was like, oh, hi. Hi, my name is Lauren. Can we please meet? I'm really interested in the work that you're doing. This is what I'm doing. If you have any extra work or overwork, hire. And she took a chance on me, and I became lighting designer number 2, and I learned so much. And because of her, it was the first time I ever saw myself and my work get published in a magazine. Excuse me. And and you can see now how much shorter my hair was at the time, and right as this was coming out, I had been asked by USC to start come and lecturing in this class that was called Designed for the Sonic and Luminous Environment. And I like to joke about it that it's like, lighting information class. Like, we don't really get into design. Like, the students aren't designing. When I first started teaching this class, there was 130 students. I mean, it was really pushing the boundaries of what I knew how to teach. I had only, been a class assistant in design studio classes where there was maybe 10 or 15 people. We were walking around to desks. I mean, at the time we were drawing on vellum with pencils. And now, you can see the students have laptops, and there was 130 people. So it really was lighting information. And I thought, like, what is the most pertinent information that I can give third-year architecture students that will make them lighting competent, so that when they go out into the world, they respect what lighting can be and what it can do, and make their designs that much better. And hopefully, even more so, hire a lighting designer so that they can make their projects holistically better with really good consultancy, not just from the engineering side, but also from the design side. And this is the class that I have taught for the longest period of time, and it continues to be one of the ones that I find really, really fun, because the students have no idea what to expect, and it's a required class. So they come in actually not really wanting to take the class, as most required classes are. And usually by the end of the class, because I only teach the first 6 to 7 weeks of the 16 weeks of the semester for this class, the students are really sad because they really wish that we could do more. They really wish we could go deeper, and they really wish I could show them more. And, I have tons of pictures of me lecturing where I'm holding up lamps and I'm turning on lights, and I'm showing them, restrike times, and I'm showing them subtractive color mixing and additive color mixing and all of these things. And it just is so fun to watch their little mini explosions of recognition of how powerful light can be, and how they never really thought about how much more explosive light is than just something binary. It's not just on and off. It's more than that. And from there, my lighting really professorship has grown, and I started teaching independent studies with graduate students. This one is a daylighting independent study that I did with one of the Masters of Architecture student. And the prompt was to design a residential house as if there would never be any electric light. And so we did, ray trace studies, we did sun path studies, we talked about having beautiful moments, we talked about contrast with shadows, we talked about having callbacks to time periods that the rest of the architecture is calling to. So you'll see the colored glass because it had hallmarks of mid-century materials and massing. And the student was so into it, and there was no place in the existing architecture curricula that allowed for this. But because of the independent study model, we were able to do this in about 10 weeks. And I am so, so proud of McIntyre, who did this, and his work. And I hope that more students find inspiration in this and decide to venture out and find something really interesting to take a leap on. And, the greatest joy is having students come back and come and see me and guest lecture. So, in one of my classes, which I'll show a couple slides of next, this is a former student of mine who's sitting with principals of the firm that he works at while evaluating work from the class he took. This is a former student of mine guest lecturing. This is a former student of mine who works for an architectural brand called Airco in their showroom. This is a former student of mine guest lecturing via Zoom who's in a PhD program studying how light affects elderly patients in long-term care. These were students I ran into at Education in New York earlier this year. This is another student who actually won an IES competition who asked me to guest lecture in her class. She teaches high school students architectural practices and to get them ready for college. And I ran into these fine young folk who were then recruiting students to come and work at their firms. And a lot of these students took these two classes, which I'm about to show you. This is 577, which is my big interior lighting studio class. And one of the things they have to do is to build an integrated lighting model. And I just want to say thank you to the manufacturers who have donated light fixtures for the students to use. I can't list them all right now, but just know that if you've done it, I really, really appreciate it, because nothing is more important in education than tactile learning experiences. And so they learn how to create light boxes and slots and coves and have to document it with the light on, with the light off. And then eventually they create whole design schemes with RCPs, with calculations, with fixture schedules, and have to be able to present these design ideas coherently and clearly, not just to me, but to guest jurors who come in who are lighting designers, designers who've either just recently entered the industry, or principals who come in and give them critical feedback about what they can do. Excuse me. And then most recently, I won a Knuckles Fund grant to expand lighting education at USC, and started this exterior lighting class. And it's not as big of a lift as 577. It's much more academic. We do a lot more reading of articles. We do light walks at night. We do comparisons. We talk about the day-dark method. How do I feel in a space during the day? How do I feel in a space at night? They walk around with light meters. They have to present every single week to be able to talk and use words and give language to light, not just I feel safe, I don't feel safe, or this is bright, this is dark. I want to hear words like, oh, this felt murky, this felt, shadowy, this felt fuzzy, this felt sharp. I want to hear textural words. I want to hear descriptive things. And almost none of these students are lighting trained. These are all architecture students, and some of them are even real estate students. And sometimes we even get our hands dirty and go outside and do these exterior lighting demos, where I rely heavily on lighting manufacturers, lighting manufacturing agents, and lighting designers who come in and volunteer their time to set up stations and show students real world lighting effects. And in this particular case, this year, the School of Art, which shares a building with the School of Architecture, had these big globes in our courtyard. And we set up lights into this whole demonstration to show what the courtyard looks like in the way the way it does regularly. And then how we set it up to be dramatically beautiful after our demonstration was done. And I'm so tickled pink every time I see that, because it just looks so good. And, USC is such I'm so proud of the work that I've done there, because my students still come back and say hi to me, they speak to me, and they reach out to me. And again, I'm telling you, light is all about people. And yes, we can see things, but these students go out and they're not afraid. And because I've been teaching, more people know that I'm willing to talk and be on panels. And then all of a sudden, this company I'd never heard of called Women in Lighting received a sponsorship from Ledger Brands, and Ledger Brands asked me to give a talk for the Women's Lighting Day. And I gave this talk about how we should be engaging our communities as citizen lighting designers, and we can't just leave lighting up to people who use numbers. We have to be thoughtful about how we apply light. And it's from that, oh no, don't play that. And it's from that Chromatic, my company with my business partner Nick, was born. And what I didn't realize was that when I stepped into this new role as principal, that I would be going back to my roots of now aiming lights, that I would be back on projects designing, that my voice would be that much louder, and I would be creating texture, and I would be having these moments of warmth and shadow and color, and all of the things that I thought I was leaving in theater started coming back. And then my voice got louder, and I had this incredible moment where I got to speak at Light Fair. And then the virtual lighting design community asked me to speak. And then I was on a podcast. And then I was on a panel. And then I volunteered and got to teach high school students about light. And then I got to hire students. And then I got to be on a panel with interior designers to talk about light. And then I got to participate in a Department of Energy peer review to also talk about light, not just energy, but the importance of light in conjunction with energy and sustainability. The numbers are important, but so is the idea and the why behind them. And then not that long ago, I was in Dubai because, again, Women in Lighting gave me this opportunity to speak about how light is important and how we can't talk about light without people. And I met, this amazing young lady here. And if you can't tell how excited I was, there you go. And as I close up, I just want to say that, that lighting really has been a guiding light in my life, not just because of how important it is in terms of our everyday world, because it really does move me artistically. It really does inspire me. But what I've realized is that every single place that I love from a design standpoint is all about how it makes people feel. That is, it's incredibly strong and evocative. And yes, the Grand Mosque is hands down one of my favorite projects. And when I did get to see it, when I was in Dubai, we drove down to Abu Dhabi and I burst into tears and could not believe that lighting had taken me all the way across the world to Dubai. And knowing, and this is I'm about to show you my other two favorite architectural lighting projects. This is a Lamari lighting design project out of Chile. This is their Bahá'í Temple. This is my favorite project because it's the extreme confluence of collaboration between architecture, materials, interior design, and lighting and engineering. I have not seen anything as strong as this ever. And this is my favorite storytelling project ever. This is a LIGHTment project out of Germany. This is their Ivory Museum. And all of these projects are meant to evoke feelings of deep, deep, deep longing or hope or empowerment. And all of that is back to people. So in full circle, I just want to say thank you to the people who have guided me in light. And thank you for this opportunity as I get to shape the next generation of lighting people. Thank you.